What?
Maybe so.
Oh my.
Sorry, Leon.
So much for having a before show segment this time. If we're not gonna,
We can have a before show segment.
it feels like we screwed it up already. Hello everyone, welcome to Word Funk. I am Leon Thomas. I am joined by Austin Yorsky and Johnny Maloney. I wonder if I should even mention this, because it's clearly poking gentle fun at someone who might follow me on Twitter. Hold on, let me double check.
Fuck Sean, right?
No. Technically, this person does not follow me on Twitter, so it's okay. I'm not going to mention this person's name. I've never heard of him before.
I'm sorry, I just, following you on Twitter is all that we have to do in order to not be made fun of, because I've been doing that for a while now, and it hasn't really helped at all.
No, I don't want to be like a jerk, exactly, but I really can't not talk about this. Someone, tweeted me something. He says, I feel like you were really off with Too Many Cooks, the episode I did on Too Many Cooks. He says, you should compare it to Interstellar. So, here's two things about that. First, Too Many Cooks debuted in October, and Interstellar came out in November, so I don't know how I could do that without a time machine. That's the first thing. Second thing, what are you talking about? Why are they similar? I don't understand that at all. Third thing, why is your avatar, two women who are naked and they're anime and they have breasts bigger than the rest of their bodies and they're mushing them together? What's that about? I feel like this is something that needs to be addressed. Look, I like lots of weird stuff, so I'm not judging. I just want to know why you decided that would be the best representation of yourself as your avatar. I feel like that's the kind of... Go ahead.
No, you know the stereotypes about anime avatars on Twitter, right?
What is that?
Oh, there was the whole thing, at the beginning of the hashtag.
Oh.
There was a lot of talk about, you could tell immediately that someone was going to be a nightmare to deal with if they had an anime avatar. Because that had just attracted a certain type of person.
Oh my.
And then a bunch of people got mad because they were calling it nerd shaming or whatever, or otaku shaming. I mean, it kind of is, but it's also eerily accurate.
No, it's not shaming, it's profiling. They're completely different. I mean, if you decide that you're going to walk around in public with one of those full-body pillows with a scantily clad 13-year-old Japanese animated character on it, you're going to get pulled aside in this line at the internet airport, and someone's going to talk to you.
I feel like you all need to see this person's Twitter avatar, so I'm sending it to you, but it's not... I assume you guys are both at home, but it's definitely not safe for work. So, there's that.
Oh my god! Leon! What the fuck?
Oh my! And the weird thing, I'm looking at the picture, and there's one woman who has a gigantic butt and huge breasts, and she has black hair. And there's another one who is exactly the same, except she has purple hair. And they're squishing their boobs together, and I believe some sort of liquid is coming out.
Are you leaving this in?
Yes, all of it.
Okay, I just want to say, as someone who worked on the internet for several years, with respect, I'm just ignoring the naked boob thing. With respect to the Interstellar Too Many Cooks things, no matter what you say on any subject, someone in the comments will say, you forgot to mention blank, when you clearly did not forget to mention that. Either you didn't care or it just wasn't relevant or something, but they will always say that. That's the phrase, too. You forgot to mention blank.
Yeah, that is probably the most common start of any comment on something that's come out of Renegade Cut or anything I've ever done. That or actually.
Yeah, that's a loaded phrase.
Well, actually, Leon, it's well actually.
Okay, so I guess we're going to jump into the news and stuff. Someone remind me, if I don't get around to it, to tell my eugenics story.
Oh God. Okay.
Before we do, I just gotta lay something on the table because this is actually the second disturbing anime conversation that I've had today.
It won't be the last either if I have my way.
I mean, these are conversations that I don't usually have, you know. Like I wouldn't say that I've given up on anime or anything like that, but I mean, you know, a couple weeks ago I was this close to being like, okay, guys, let's never talk about anime on the podcast ever again. I can't deal with the fallout.
We quadrupled our usual comments.
Yes, we did. But I mean, you know, that's like saying I got kicked in the nuts 5 times instead of twice.
At what cost, though?
At what cost?
Did people like our anime discussion? You know, I don't look.
Some did. I mean, some of it was actually genuinely like connecting and discussing with what we said, but a bunch of people were just, butthurt's the only word that comes to mind. Some people were just butthurt.
They found that 30-second segment of the show and like zeroed in on it, and like it was as if we didn't speak for anything except that half-minute segment. And it was like, let me tell you why everything that you assume about Japanese animation is mistaken, sir.
You forgot to mention this, actually.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry.
Wait. Yeah, Johnny, you were saying?
Yes, the conversation that I had earlier today, I mean, you know, tangentially, I'm just going to mention this, okay, because it was the basis of the conversation. Microsoft had their conference today. And there was a little bit of news that was like, oh, that's neat, oh, that's kind of interesting, you know, but like mostly it was like, you know, Microsoft kind of like going out back to the swamp and digging out that like bloated corpse of hope for the PC from them and like parading it on stage like a puppet. But there was this one segment that they did that they talked about like a holographic computer.
Oh yeah, the holograms, and then everyone did the that screen capture from Archer. With the scientist and his holographic anime girlfriend.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That was the conversation that I had. We were talking about the HoloLens. I was talking about this with a friend at work who wishes to remain anonymous. And I was like, I just made a joke, you know, because he had just heard about it, and I was like, yeah, I mean, you know that the porn industry is just going to revolutionize that piece of tech. And just offhandedly he said, yeah, the porn and the anime industry. Oh, that just like, that made me feel wrong inside, you know? Like.
It's totally true though.
It really is. It really is. I mean.
We might talk about that again later.
Austin, tell us about your eugenics story right now.
Not even any lead up, huh?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, I don't even know where to start with this, because this was like a 4-hour conversation I had with a couple of friends, like, last week, and it ended with someone getting slammed through a bed and breaking it, awesome. But it starts with, actually, no, it starts with slurs. Hold on. God dang, I have to go, this is an adventure. I made a joke while I was hanging out with some friends about how the worst thing about racism was that there was no short way to refer to raccoons anymore. And someone didn't get it because they had never heard the racial slur.
Oh, God.
I assume you guys have, yes?
Yes. It's a stupid and dumb thing to say, really. I never even got that one. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a dumb thing. But it came out through the course of this conversation that there's a bunch of racial slurs that kids, I guess, you know, people my age, I guess, I think of them as kids, don't know. Like, they didn't know the K word. You guys are aware of the K word?
I believe.
Yes.
I know a K word.
Okay, it's a slur.
I believe it refers to the sons and daughters of Abraham. Is that right?
That was an artful way of saying Jewish people. Yes, but there's other ones too. I know, I was just going down this list, and no, like, kids these days have a very limited slur vocabulary. That led into a conversation about racism, and eventually to eugenics, which one of the kids I was arguing with, who is, by the way, pre-med, this person is going to be a doctor, had never heard of the word eugenics, but it became clear when we explained what it was to him that it was a thing he agreed with. He was like, yeah, why don't we just kill people with genetic deficiencies to make us all better? That'll make, you know, the gene pool better. And I was like, are you being funny? Is this a joke? I've lost track of this conversation. And we actually discussed for like hours about the moral, like, justifiability of this. Like, the kid was absolutely convinced, or if either the most dedicated troll, or absolutely convinced that there was nothing wrong with that.
Did you say you understand that we stopped thinking about this because of Hitler, and that was why?
Yeah, I explained it. I was like, you cannot just say you were pro-eugenics. Not after, like, there was a time when that was the thing that, like, academics were playing with. But, like, after World War II, it's just not okay to even, like, entertain that anymore.
It sort of led down a dark path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It got pretty morbid pretty quickly. I mean, going from a couple of armchair biologists talking about, well, yeah, why don't we mandate selective breeding in our society to, oh, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, eugenics was basically someone said, I have an idea, and then someone else said, let's make it worse.
Yeah, like my brother pointed out, there's a Cards Against Humanity card that just says eugenics with no other context, and that was like the most damning thing anyone could think of for the concept. That by itself, it necessitated its own card. I guess I don't want to take up the whole show, but somehow this led to me physically trying to flee the scene of this conversation, and I had to be restrained. Like my brother put me in like a headlock to keep me from getting away from this, and it just turned into fucking dumbass redneck horseplay, and I accidentally slammed my brother through a bed because this fight spilled over into the bedroom.
I feel like if your brother puts you in a headlock, you're allowed to start using foreign objects. I mean,
it wasn't on purpose. I didn't mean to break anything, but yes. So long story short, we talked about racial slurs and then eugenics, and then we broke furniture because that's a normal Floridian conversation if you ever were curious.
See, that sounds like a really great episode of WWE SmackDown to me.
To you, that's like, oh, that's great entertainment. Like, that was just a Wednesday.
Although it is an interesting statement about how we should build better beds, and take all the weak beds that people are sleeping on, and even if they're using it, just burn them so that the only beds that exist in the world are, excellent beds.
If you ever wind up in a Floridian hospital in the next, 8 years or so, be careful, because your doctor might kill you. I do think it's interesting that some of these slurs have just completely fallen out of favor.
Did he go after a particular group of people, and was he like, yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable to me. I've never liked Iranian people anyway.
No, it wasn't even malicious. He was just when it came to us realizing that he was pro eugenics, it seemed like to him it was a completely natural conclusion to reach. He's just well, sick people are bad, and people with genetic disorders are bad.
I'm sorry, wait a second. So this doctor, this guy who's supposedly going to be taking the Hippocratic oath that says first do no harm, is yeah, fucking kill the sick people.
Exactly. We were confused by this too. My brother was like, I understand where you're coming from. What about gene therapy? Why don't we, try to eliminate these things through other means? He's like, why? Just kill them.
What about the acknowledgement that random mutation in the species can lead to positive change in our genome over time?
Or that even people with flawed genes can still have full and happy lives?
I'm just trying to attack it from the logical point of view here. I mean, I don't doubt, of course. Look at me. I'm a horrible, horrible person. You both know how sick I've been. I'm really bad at it. I'm just awful. And I've lived a life.
It was okay.
Your friend, I'm sorry.
I wasn't a kick in the pants.
You have to stop being friends with this person. Right, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it sounds like this person is truly horrible. I'm not saying he is the next Hitler, but he sounds like he has far too much in common for it to be a comfortable friendship any longer. I'm just gonna say this. You guys, I've known you guys for years. I love you guys. If either of you genuinely said the things that your friend just said, Austin, you would be gone from this show. I would block you on Twitter, and I would publicly shame you about it. It would be over.
You know what's funny? It wasn't the first sign either. In retrospect, it was so obvious.
Did he have a swastika on his forehead?
No, but he plays Project M. That's the first motherfucking tip-off.
What is that? Do I know what that is?
It's a Super Smash Brothers mod.
What? What did you do?
This isn't like a super fighting game community in joke. No, it's just some Super Smash Brothers fans are like elitist jerks, and they modded Super Smash Brothers Brawl because they didn't like the way it played. I'm being a dick to like a very small percentage of a really esoteric sub-scene of something else that no one listening knows about.
So he felt that Super Smash Brothers was of inferior blood, and that it needed
Yes.
to work. Oh my.
Exactly.
I'm really not sure what we're talking about, but I'm on both of your guys' sides.
Good, I guess.
Hey, how do we transition? Did you guys hear someone, I think it was PC Gamer, they wrote an article about how people should stop saying PC Master Race?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
people were upset about that. There's a transition.
That was a lot of butt hurt.
There's better ways to say it, I guess. I don't know.
My main problem is it's just not funny anymore.
It's not. It's really not funny anymore because there are people who damn well take it seriously and take every chance they can to like repeat it as a mantra, and it's just kind of like cool your jets, buddy. I know.
I laughed like 6 years ago when Zero Punctuation first did the video where he said that. I was like, that's a joke.
And then somebody decided to go ahead and like actually make a flag. Guess what flag they use as a template, guys?
The show is just all Nazis. This whole thing.
This is the life you chose, Leon.
It is.
All the choices you made up to this point led you here.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Johnny. Porn, right? Porn happened. Why don't you tell us about
porn did not happen.
All right, well then tell us about how porn did not happen then, because that's also news.
Well, I mean, of course, the funny thing about this being is that like if you want porn, it's pretty thick on the ground. Like it's kind of everywhere. It's easy to trip over. Like you can just find it. It's there to be had. It's kind of like, I don't know, socks. I'm sure,
what?
like
you lost
could
me.
like, I don't know. It's like, they're like socks. I mean, sure you can pay for them, but I mean, you're probably likely to find some of them if you're just looking for it. Okay, let's start over again. So anyway,
either your experiences with porn or your experiences with socks vary differently from mine.
Very possibly. I mean, it might be a Canadian thing. Maybe socks are a little bit more endangered in Florida. It sounds as though people would probably want to avoid having sweaty, damp cloths on their feet. Not really a problem in Canada. Usually, we have like warm, dry things that we put on our feet. In any case. You guys may remember a couple of weeks ago that we were talking about a game that got banned from Steam Greenlight by the name of Hatred, which raised, as always is on this show, brief conversation about the concept of censorship and whether or not Steam's actually able to control like what goes on through their storefront. Well, there seems to have been another kind of like anomaly, I guess you might call it, in Steam's sort of release schedule. If you go to the Steam main webpage, you may notice that there's a good deal of anime-themed games that have just kind of appeared on the storefront. This is not a coincidence. But it is a little strange because most of these games, not to say that all Japanese-themed games that have been released on Steam are made with the express purpose of getting you to eat your meat.
I thought you were going to use an actual euphemism there. You basically just went for it.
I'm just full bore. I was also going to say pound the mound because this is an equal gender opportunity podcast here. But it seems to be that most of the games that have recently released on Steam were designed for this express purpose. They call them, and by all means leave a, actually comment in the section below if I'm pronouncing this wrong, an eroge.
I'm pretty excited for them to correct you.
Yeah, I want to hear eroge. I don't know. Pardon me if learning how to properly pronounce pornographic visual novels that don't really appeal to me is low on my list of priorities in life. In any case, a lot of people were excited that these games had come to Steam, only to discover, much to their flaccid disappointment, that much of the porn inside has been blurred over, stripped out, steam clean. There we go.
Well done.
Thank you. So yeah, and I mean, like I said, not really my jam, not even my toast. But like, should this be happening?
Well, geez, I mean, now where is anyone going to go on the internet for porn?
Precisely. These are obviously dark times for anybody who wants to look at titties.
Have we talked about fan service on here before? I feel like we might have done on the BT podcast. I don't know if we've done World Funk.
Probably at some point.
But it's like, especially like when you talk about anime, someone asked me about like Kill la Kill. I talked about it a little bit last week. My problem with fan service is always that if I want to see tits, I'll either just look at tits in real life because they're there, or watch porn. Like I don't really understand the appeal of it in non-pornographic stuff. Like there could be like literally anything else going on.
Well, that's sort of what happened to the love scene in film in recent years. Basically, because of the proliferation of pornography on the internet, there have been a lot less full-on sex scenes in major feature films because they're not mandated as much. Because it's like, okay, because I mean, I'm not saying that like people got tired of boobs or something. I'm saying that every once in a while a producer will say, okay, I like the script. You just need some sex in there because that, people are going to want to see that, and then you got your movie. But now it just doesn't seem as important, so maybe that conversation goes away. Yeah,
I think that's what I hate to make like blanket statements like you should just get rid of all fan service because I mean, there's a time and a place or whatever. There's tones where it works, but I that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, more specifically on the erotic visual novel front, obviously, as we said before, it's Steam's storefront. They can sell what they want to sell with it. It's strange, though, that you can have a game get censored or banned or whatever, not want to sell it, because it shows, like, a nipple, but you can pry a dude's head open with a Bowie knife and fucking eat his brains. No one cares.
But this is the thing, is that Steam hasn't shied away from having games with sex in them.
That's
and
true.
even nudity. I mean, The Witcher, which I will rub all over myself day and night, just to smell a little bit like that franchise of games, has some sex in it. Sex and nudity. The first game, not quite as tasteful, a little more gratuitous, but I mean, Steam still was just kind of like, okay. It seems to be a shot at the... Yeah, I mean, it seems to be very specifically the fact that maybe the focus of these games is, pornographic, I guess.
Well, here's the thing, because I that's not the conclusion I drew at all. When I thought about, like, games that have nudity, they're on Steam. So you said The Witcher, I said Grand Theft Auto, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and stuff like that.
There's some very, very awkward sex scenes in Dragon Age and Mass Effect.
There are. But the conclusion I didn't draw that what you just said. What I was thinking was, what's the difference between the ones that are getting steamed over, like quite literally. The joke you made, I don't know if everyone listening got it, was that they're often censored with actual Steam on Steam.
Yeah.
The connecting thread there is that they're Japanese. Not that they're pornographic necessarily. Some of these are like 40-hour-long visual novels, like just reams of fucking text. Ream was not a pun, although I do realize now that it could be one.
Could it have something to do with the fact, and I saw
long, hard...
Could it have
amounts of text to read?
I saw the link and the comparative images. Could it have something to do with the fact that young women who are nude in anime look super young?
Definitely. That's kind of where I was going with that. I mean, obviously Japan and the West have different cultural hang-ups or whatever, violence and sex. I think the specific issue might be one of age and consent, which are not as clear in some Japanese
not
stuff.
as richly developed in.
There's some nuance issues when it comes to that. Yeah, that's definitely the thing, I think, Leon. Like, when you say The Witcher, Dragon Age, Grand Theft Auto, those are all, like, people who are clearly, like, in their 20s naked, right?
I guess.
And in this anime stuff, sometimes not.
It's hard to tell how old someone is in a drawing, but they look a certain age. I tried to play, and I'm probably going to get this title wrong, Kawada Soju.
Katawa Shoujo, which I love.
Yeah. It's for those who have never played it or heard of it. It came out a few years ago, and it's about a guy who goes to a school, and everyone there is disabled in some way. I'll be honest, I couldn't get very far into it because I found it so boring, so I never even got to any of the graphic sex stuff. I just did story mode for a while, and I was like, I don't care. I was going to do it for Heart of Gaming, and then I said, this isn't worth it, and I did something else that week.
Yeah.
Some of these Steam reviews are fantastic, though.
Oh, okay.
Like the people that are disappointed, like here's a short one. 10 damn days of build-up to bang my waifu, and she didn't even show me her cooter. 0 out of 10. Bottom shelf hentai. This is my favorite, though, okay? Not sure I'm really impressed with this game. It's basically a 3-match puzzle game with the reward of moaning girls and sexy anime CGs. Whatever, as if he bought it for another reason. I bought it because the artwork, as far as the CG goes, is pretty decent. And yes, erotic. What really pisses me off, though, is the questions the girls sometimes ask about politics. If you want to indoctrinate people, put politics which only lean to one side in your games. Well, that'll either indoctrinate them or piss them royally off. Also, the gift-giving and comments by some of the characters are really flat-out racist.
Is that okay? There's like 1,000 things I want to say right now. I'm really sorry, guys. This is a rabbit hole. We've all tumbled down. I'm dragging us all the way to the bottom. That comment you just read. Do you know what game that's from?
Yes. Like the game that it was written about.
Yeah. What's the name of it?
The name of the game is Honey Pop.
I thought so. The guy who made that game is an ex-Insomniac developer. They made Ratchet and Clank.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And he is kind of, I don't know him personally, so I don't want to like say mean things about him, but he wrote a really angry blog post decrying quote unquote SJW reviewers who were slamming his game. So I find it funny that the review you just read mentioned politics. Also, if you use SJW as a pejorative, I'm gonna make fun of you. I mean, you could be a really nice guy. I'm probably gonna make fun of you. But here's the thing: where did the stereotype that people who care about social justice don't like sex come from? Because most of the like SJWs that I know are disgusting perverts. But no, seriously, I think that's a really strange thing to me because the only as far as I can tell, people who are interested in social justice are interested in more varied depictions of sexuality and more nuanced depictions of sexuality, like actual effort in eroticism as opposed to just, objects with tits nailed to them bouncing around. That's not anti-sex. That's pro-good sex.
Yeah, it's just sex positive.
And pro-good writing as well.
The horniest people I know are feminists. It always strikes me as a really strange stereotype.
I'm a feminist and I'm horny too. Oh my god. This is
Leon. High five. Well, wash your hands first, then we'll high five.
You guys don't even want to get into this with me. Like we're already halfway down the rabbit hole. You don't want to see how far this goes.
Okay. I could just do this talk all day, but you mentioned Katawa Shoujo. I already talked how I like that game at length. I think we need more things like that actually try to, whether, Leon, you think it failed or was boring, that at least tried to engage with sexuality in an interesting way, as opposed to just being porn. I think
you can't argue that it wasn't humanizing. It was a very humanizing game.
Yeah. It struck a chord with me because it was so true to my experience as someone who was going through an injury in high school and discovering sexuality. It was about me and my friends almost. It was weird. I really enjoyed it. I think we need more things like that. I think Steam should have games that deal with sexuality. The problem, I think, with the games that have so far been quote-unquote censored is that they're irredeemable, indefensible junk. Not necessarily that they're smutty, it's just that they're not good.
So there you go. Your shortcut to getting sexy shit all over the internet is make it good.
Yeah.
That's the shortcut to basically everything.
Pretty much. I mean, the secret handshake is it good? Okay, you're in.
Leon?
I'm just looking at
I mean, that's not the only secret handshake, but the other ones are pretty, sticky. So.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Is this the part where we move on and talk about fucking operating systems?
Did an operating system thing happen?
Well,
Microsoft had a press conference.
All right.
They announced, the short news is they announced that for a whole year, users of Windows 7 and 8.1 are going to get 10 for free.
Oh god, who cares?
Wait, what?
Yeah, if you're a Windows 7 user or an 8.1 user, for a full year after Windows 10 releases, you can get it for free. You can upgrade to Windows 10 for free.
Oh, cool, because I have Windows 7 on my computer.
To which my response was, hey, free operating system is a thing, but so is a free kick in the cobblers. In this analogy, cobblers are testicles.
I like Windows 7 though. I have no real reason to change it. What do they claim are the advantages? Because I tried Windows.
Stuff. They've added Cortana, so you can talk to your computer now and be like, Cortana, where's a good salami restaurant? Cortana, can you massage my feet? Cortana, find me top shelf hentai.
I love how they named their little electronic assistant thing after the character whose only character arc is going insane.
Yep.
That's a wonderful bit of PR.
Or the internet browser that they announced, named after a failed super soldier program that's going to allow everybody to draw dicks everywhere on the internet.
Also, I don't even want to talk about this, but they also announced something called a HoloLens, which is an augmented reality thing, and they showed someone playing
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier when I was saying that we're gonna get some pretty rough holographic porn, and then consequently holographic hentai.
Yeah, I know.
There's gonna be that awkward moment where you don't know what your friend is looking at through his HoloLens, and he's got that twinkle in his eye, and you're just kind of like, dude, what are you doing?
I have a question. Just for a guy like me who doesn't really want any bells and whistles, is the new Windows, does it go faster or something? Are there noticeable differences that will actually change my experience if I mostly just use my computer to do the same things I do today, but
well, a lot of people are saying actually that the HoloLens could be easily used for really good editing suites, because basically what you're looking at is it can put a monitor pretty much anywhere, so you can have artificial monitors sort of just floating around you.
Johnny, let's be real. The HoloLens thing is never coming out, and if it does, it won't be anywhere near as good as they said. Leon, to your question, we don't know. Of course, they say their new operating system is better. Who the fuck knows? I was on the internet earlier, and a pop-up thing tried to get me to download the new fucking Windows Internet Explorer, and it was like, oh, it's Internet Explorer. Now it's faster. And I was like, you fucking cowardly liars. And then I exited out of it because bullshit. Fuck it.
I'm just trying to convince myself I'm going to be doing a good thing because DirectX 12 is pretty much going to force my hand.
By the way, sorry for the clearly obvious police sirens in the background during our last conversation. I live in Baltimore, and everyone's dying all the time.
I was going to make a joke about them coming for you because of our last conversation, but Johnny was talking.
God.
So... Anti-police, everyone on the ground.
Anyone? What police?
Hentai police.
Oh.
Somebody in this podcast is talking about really low-grade, bottom-shelf hentai.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Hey, Leon.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the 90s, there was a show.
Yeah.
I saw one episode. Tony Shalhoub was in it. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
It was called The X-Files.
Tony Shalhoub was in it?
If I am remembering correctly, and I'm Googling it now, I think there was an episode of The X-Files that Tony Shalhoub was in.
I saw part of an episode that had Giovanni Ribisi in it. He got struck by lightning.
I'm looking it up now.
Okay.
Every episode of The X-Files has a Wikipedia page. Christ.
I was a little weirded out because for a second there I thought I was just watching like an autobiographical account of Giovanni Ribisi's life because I thought if he got struck by lightning a few times that might explain Giovanni Ribisi.
Tony Shalhoub was in the episode about spontaneous human combustion. Yeah.
Leon, it's season 2, episode 23, called Soft Light.
Right,
I looked it up.
I'm looking at it. All right, it says, show centers on blah, 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 blah. Mulder ponders the idea of spontaneous human combustion. Yeah, but
So the exciting news is that Tony Shalhoub is coming back to TV?
Okay.
That's what's going on?
Okay, look.
That's stellar!
There used to be a show called The X-Files. You may have heard of it. It was on Fox when Fox was young, and it was one of their big hits along with The Simpsons and Married with Children.
Yeah, they had an FMV game, didn't they?
Yes, that's how you know about it. No, The X-Files was a really good show, and then I stopped watching in like the second to last season because cast changes, and I just stopped for some reason. It was great. The first movie was great. I didn't watch the second movie. Apparently, it was not great. But the point is that they may be bringing back The X-Files because that's a thing people do now. They thought we have this property, let's make some money off of it. We don't need to reboot it because David Duchovny, although a bit older, still looks pretty good, and Gillian Anderson still looks really good. So why?
You had to specify.
So they're like, hey, let's bring them back for another season, and if it hits, we'll do another season. And it's not the worst idea. The only problem is, and I'm not the one who first brought this up. A colleague of mine did. Basically the issue with bringing back the X-Files is now Mulder is going to seem like a creep because the way we think about conspiracy theorists in the 90s is different from how we do now. Because now conspiracy theorists are people who work for the Drudge Report, and on the opposite side of that, like 9/11 truthers and people who say, like, where's your birth certificate, Obama? What about the Benghazi Nazis, and shit like that. And so now that conspiracy theorists are just the worst people who are destroying intelligent thought and debate, Mulder is less charming and more questionable.
Now, I've only seen one episode of this show. Is that how big of an issue is it that the character is a conspiracy theorist?
It's the thing. It's everything.
Oh.
It's absolutely everything.
Okay.
Every episode goes in a similar way. It starts like this: Mulder and Scully get a call or a message, and they say something weird is happening in such and such, and Mulder is like, you know what? I bet it is lizard people. And Mulder always has this like wacky theory about what's going on, and Scully is like, Mulder, it's probably not lizard people. There are like 12 rational explanations for this. You went to the least likely one for no reason. And Mulder's like, I think it's lizard people. And then later in the episode, you find out it is lizard people. But and Mulder witnesses the lizard people, but Scully is always like in the other room when the lizard people pop out, and then she shows up just after they leave, and Mulder was like, oh, it's right, it was the lizard people. And then Scully was like, let's go home, Mulder. And then they do, and it starts over next week. And it sounds stupid, and it is. But it was also really suspenseful at the time. It was really cool. Basically, there were two kinds of episodes. There were Monster of the Week episodes where, lizard people and like genetic strains of this, and like there's a super virus and spontaneous human combustion, and look, it's a werewolf. And then Scully looks the other way when the werewolf shows up. But there were the what were they called? The mythos episodes, where the main thread of the story about what's going on between the aliens and our government, what's really happening there. And that was like the main thread of the story, but they couldn't do that every episode. So sometimes you just had Monster of the Week, and sometimes you had the mythos stuff.
Well, wait, so the government's an antagonist? Because we're also living in a post-Snowden era. I don't know how well that'll play.
The government is a shady part of the government.
Mm-hmm.
Is collaborating in some way with the aliens. I forget exactly how it shook out because, again, I didn't watch the finale to the series. I mean, if it does come back, that'll at the very least give me, an excuse to watch it from the beginning till the end. And
well, did they wrap up? Is it like Twin Peaks where there's like 1,000 hanging plot threads and it makes sense to bring back?
They had they had a bunch of seasons, and then they had a movie, and then they had a bunch of other seasons, and they finished it, and then they had a post-show movie a few years ago. So it's not like a thing like it ended on a cliffhanger. Like Mulder opens the door and the door there's like a title over the door that says "The Truth," and then he opens it and a light shines and it says "To be continued," and you never find out what happened. No, you find out everything. I mean, more or less. One of the main storylines that goes on for like 7 or 8 years is Mulder's sister has been missing since they were kids. And he finally finds out what happened to her. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who actually wants to watch this very old show.
Lizard Men.
It's very disappointing. I'll just put it that way. And then, so basically, virtually everything, as far as I remember, gets wrapped up. Even the spinoff to that, The Lone Gunman, did end on a cliffhanger, but then X-Files was like, we'll resolve the cliffhanger on our show. So even that got resolved.
What about Tony Shalhoub? Did he make it?
I don't recall. I assume since he's in an episode about spontaneous human combustion that he's a smoking cinder right now. So
that was also a really downer way to end Monk. I can't believe they went there.
I don't really do television on Renegade Cut, but I did mention X-Files once because of the fact that John Munch from Homicide and Law & Order and various other shows shows up in one episode of the X-Files that ties together with a bunch of other shows. So at the same time that Law & Order is happening, in every episode of Law & Order, there are aliens right above them because they've established that in an episode of X-Files.
I wanted to watch that for a while. But there's like 200 episodes. Like it's in my Netflix queue, and that's just really intimidating.
It's a long slog. It's not, and I mean, if they are bringing back the show, it probably won't happen for another 1.5 to 2 years. So it's not like you have to binge watch this thing.
I know, but there's also like Star Trek that I want to watch. There's like 7,000 episodes of that motherfucker. This is all from like when I wasn't watching TV. The show was like started in the mid '90s, right?
Something like that. I can't remember exactly.
93, it looks like. Yeah, that's a dark time. Speaking of stuff, I just know me and Johnny haven't watched X-Files, so we couldn't contribute to
That's
that
okay. Go ahead.
in any meaningful capacity. Another story came out. I don't know how this relates. I'm pretending like it does. Disney totally dicked over George Lucas, and that's pretty funny.
To be fair, he deserved it.
All right, look. Here's what happened. Basically, George Lucas had an idea for Star Wars Episode 7.
He scribbled on a napkin that had a bunch of gravy on it because...
he didn't go into every last detail about it, but basically he said, here's my idea for Star Wars Episode 7. And his plan was going to be, he was going to make Episode 7 and then sell Lucasfilm to Disney, and they would go on from there. But then Disney said, we want it all now, and we don't want your damn ideas. So they bought it, and they have not used any of Lucas's ideas for Star Wars Episode 7. I believe Lucas has a credit in Episode 7 as a consultant, but by and large, he's been marginalized to the point that he's not really involved.
I mean, he just yells things through their office windows, and I guess that counts as consultation.
What about a giant alien fish with a Mexican accent?
The son of Jar Jar Binks!
Jeez.
So, yeah.
Have you guys heard of, like, a bunch of his actual early stuff? Like, I remember reading somewhere, like, Chewbacca's early design was, like, radically different and, like, really stupid sounding.
Luke Skywalker was going to be a frogman or something like that?
Yeah. He's not good in hindsight. Like, even the names, we probably have said this before, but, like, Luke Skywalker is a terrible name.
No, it's not. It's awesome, and you're wrong.
He's not a good writer, guys.
All right, look, George Lucas. This is how I feel about George Lucas, and this is the truth. He had a few really good ideas, and some of them he was able to write well. I mean, Star Wars, regardless of people say, oh, it was saved in editing. Everything is saved in editing. It's all shit and raw footage until someone edits it. So that's number one. So Star Wars was not saved in editing. He made a good movie. He also made THX 1138, which was good. He also made American Graffiti, which was also very good and got a bunch of Oscar nominations, I believe.
According to my Google, he didn't write either of those, though. He only wrote the Indiana Jones and the Star Wars movies and Willow.
No. He did not write. He did not write the Star Wars movies.
He wrote the first Star Wars movie. He wrote THX 1138, and he co-wrote American Graffiti. But he was not the sole writer of that one, which was arguably, objectively, one of his better works. He also came up with a bunch of ideas that he did not really write. He came up with Indiana Jones and had the basic idea for the story, but he was not really credited as the main screenwriter for it. He just said, I have an idea for a guy, Indiana Jones, let's do that. And Spielberg was like, all right. And then Lucas says, we should do it about this and this. And then,
yeah, but Indiana Jones, I mean, let's be honest here. Indiana Jones is not... Indiana Jones is Alan Quatermain.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. The Star Wars and the Indiana Jones stuff is all really derivative. He basically just put other people's stuff together.
Yeah, that's saying like almost anything.
Not that there's no art in pastiche. I'm just saying he's not an ideas man.
There is such a thing as a good DJ.
Look here. No, here's how I feel. I mean, everything's derivative now. I mean, yeah, he was clearly paying homage to early series,
especially this podcast.
He was clearly paying homage to early serials, both with Indiana Jones and with Star Wars. And he obviously used a lot of ideas previously, but that's just how almost all fiction is done. Everything is built off the past. So
I'm just saying anything he came up with from whole cloth, it seems lacking, and a lot of the stuff where he had basically updated stuff or just kind of played with it that already existed is like the stronger material.
I feel like THX 1138 is a pretty original work, and that was pretty much his baby. So I kind of disagree with that. I also think that am I the only one who loved Willow? Is that just me?
It was all right. I mean, it was enjoyable.
You're all pigs. I love that. It was great. It was awesome. Mad Mardigan and I don't know. Maybe again, I feel like people have like a passing interest in Willow, whereas I feel like it's just awesome. Again, he didn't write or direct it. He just had an idea and then he helped make it happen.
Like, okay, I'm trying to do research as we're talking. For THX 1138, which is really hard to say, it says, Lucas wrote the initial script, but Coppola and Lucas agreed it was unsatisfactory. Another guy named Murch was brought in and actually, made it presentable.
Well, okay.
Walter Murch. Yeah. So I'm...
The Walter Murch?
He wrote some of it, and then a script doctor changed it.
Yeah,
which that's common of almost even like the big screenwriters have scriptwriters come in.
I guess that's fair.
I mean, so I don't know. He's done a lot of writing. He's a better, and when you say he's not an idea man, I disagree. I think he's a better idea man than he is a writer or director. He has a good idea. He says, "Let's do a thing called Star Wars." By the way, that's not how George Lucas sounds.
Walter Murch wrote Return to Oz.
Oh my!
Damn, heavy hitter.
I don't know why I made George Lucas sound like he was about to say 23 Skidoo, but he did. No, George Lucas. The best thing about the guy is that he says, "I have an idea for a thing," and then he gets people who are arguably as talented or more talented than himself to come in and make it awesome. That's what Star Wars is. He says, I have an idea for a thing called Star Wars. And then a bunch of really talented people came in and made Star Wars awesome. And he had a huge part in that one. But as time went on, a lot of the responsibilities for Star Wars was handed off to other people, arguably more talented people. And then Indiana Jones, he said, I have an idea for Indiana Jones. And then Steven Spielberg, who was a way better director, came in and dealt with that and handled it much better. And that's what I mean by I think that George Lucas is a great idea man. He's like a CEO of a company that has a lot of ideas, and then he gets the actual workers to do them.
Are you telling me that you can make a living in this world just telling people, wait, I have an idea?
If you also have money, and he's also, and again, I'll praise him a little bit more. He's also a very shrewd businessman. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't end up have that many billions of dollars without some business sense. The fact that he somehow conned a studio into giving up all merchandising rights to Star Wars is still like one of the biggest blunders on the studio's end I ever heard. Oh yeah, you can have the toy rights to do this Star Wars thing. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then like, I think that'll pay off for him forever. And then freaking Disney, I don't even know how much they paid him for Lucas, film.
All of it.
Yeah, all the money.
I think it was $6 billion.
Jesus Christ.
I think.
Yeah. And I'll say one more.
More than any person could ever spend.
Yeah. One more nice thing about George Lucas. Apparently he gave just like an ungodly amount of his life savings to charity at some point.
Yeah. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I don't mean to be a dick.
No.
There was also, did you guys ever hear that story about what he did to his property?
That sounded like vaguely threatening. What happened?
No. It was this, like, he was in fights with a bunch of neighbors, right? About stuff that he was doing, or like sound stages that he was building or something like that. Like, everybody was complaining that it was lowering their property values, and every time he wanted to do something, like, you know, he wanted to build a film studio or something like that, they were like, no, it'll lower property values, and he had something like 200 acres of land on his ranch. It was like 200 or 300 acres of land on Skywalker Ranch that he wanted to build, like, these facilities on, that his neighbors kept cock-blocking him. So in the end, he was like, well, you know, I've got all this land and nothing to do with it, so I guess I'll make housing for the poor.
Yeah.
And then he just, boom, yeah, he donated, like, a whole bunch of acres to just, like, low-income housing, and, like, his neighbors' property values plummeted anyways.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of bad things I can say about George Lucas's output over the years. I just like to throw in the few good things, because I feel like at some point we kind of forgot that he's responsible for a lot of cool stuff that happened. That's all I wanted to say. Before we go, I used to do this. I don't much anymore, so I'll just do it real quick. Every once in a while, I start listening to a new podcast besides this one, and I like to tell people more about podcasts because I listen to like 12 of them. There's one called Criminal. If you liked Serial, you may like Criminal. It's basically 20 minutes. It's not a long story. It's just individual true crime stories, and they're all really cool. Go to thisiscriminal.com for that. They do not pay me to say this. I just listen to so many podcasts that I feel like I should talk about podcasts on my podcast. Anything you guys want to say before we go? I have 1 minute before I have to watch American Horror Story.
Yeah, I think my favorite couple of the Golden Globes the other week was Christoph Waltz and his cheeseburger.
I just want to say real quick, I'm playing Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for Wii U, and it is delightful. It is just really, really cute. You should play that. It came out at $40 for a retail console game, which is very thoughtful of Nintendo. Play it. It's good.
Okay. You know, this is a really good episode. We took a very hard stance against Nazis, and not enough people do that. More people need to say they don't like Nazis.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, what was our even fucking conclusion on that porn discussion? Are we pro? What are we pro?
Oh, I don't care.